Hello, and thank you very much for watching. This is our presentation of design of proposal of didactic activities for Homonymy teaching in the book Complete Course for Schools from Third Year's English of Mid-Higher Education in Angel Matute Vidal School. Our team is formed by Álvarez Herrera, Andrea Elizabeth, Gómez Olmedo, Naomi Jimena, Jiménez Carrillo, Ricardo Emilio, y Vargas Meléndez, Ana Valeria. This will be presented on February 1st of 2021. And what we're basically going to do right here in this video is to make a summary of the whole research. We'll try to focus on the main points that we will get through. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of our experience within the project itself. We should get started by talking about the following work, which consists on an investigation regarding a proposal of didactic activities for the comprehension of the homonymy. A little bit more specifically on homophony, and it's intended to be for third-year high school students of the Angel Matute Vidal School, because pretty much the workbook of this group does not cover the semantic topic throughout the vocabulary lessons, nor the identifications of homophones and homonymy itself in everyday conversations. And the purpose of this research is to help the learners to comprehend, identify, and use those homophones and, homonymy appropriately. The research is composed of the following sections: the educational contextual framework, which explains pretty much the educational and sociocultural situation of learners, as well as the approach that we will be addressing over the didactic activities. The theoretical framework, in which we will give the basis for the design of our activities, a bit of the description of the semantic topic. Actually, we have a few authors talking about the semantic topic, and we built a definition ourselves for the activities. We will also be talking about the learning theory chosen to support them and the approach they will have. We also will put number 3, the critic of the book review, which serves to identify the didactic context and sustain didactic activities proposal, as well as the problem that we're presenting in it. And in number 4, we have the didactic proposal, where our hypothesis of the proposal will be presented, as well as the didactic activities purpose as described. The activities will be based on cognitivism as a learning theory, and we're designed to, they were designed with the present practice and production approach. They were developed to work with 3 of the language main skills, which are vocabulary as the mastery pursuit, speaking, and writing and listening as well. The research is limited to be chosen to the population and educational context that we already suggest, and among its areas of opportunity to expand to a wider educational context population. So for starters, we have our educational contextual framework. We already talked that they're from third year on Angel Matute Vidal School, which is a private religious educational institution. It's dedicated to the human and Catholicism teenagers and children formation through the teaching and multiple social works. This institution counts with the educational levels from elementary to high school, in which they gave 6 hours of English a week per every level. However, they are aware of the English level of the students in the same group, no matter the school grade or educative level in which they take their classes, since every student has a lower or higher language dominance than English. Having that said, our activities to be developed are mainly focused on the English workbook Complete Course for Schools of the third year of high school of this institute. It has a population of 25 students on this group with ages between 16 and 17 years old, who have a language dominance level rounding the B1 plus level, A2, A2, or even a B2 minus. Within the CFR, the workbook has the objective of preparing the students for the acquisition of Cambridge First Certificate of English once they finish their mid-higher educational process inside the institution. But a certain problematic has been identified from a semantic point of view, as it is the absence of activities that include homonymy as a subject for English students, preparation for the second language acquisition, as well as the obtention of the desired certification. So our number 3 is semantic description of homonymy on the theoretical framework. And we, as I mentioned before, we rounded over a few authors. And the first one, according to Krovitz, homonyms are words with two distinct unrelated meanings. And for Fernandez, homonymy consists on a coincidence between signifiers merely by chance. Homonymous words often belong to different grammatical categories, and homonymous terms can be homographs, which are pronounced and written the same way, and homophones, which consists on words pronounced the same way but written differently. With the previous aspects taken into account, we agree on the homonymy as a semantic and lexical phenomenon that involves not only a coincidence in its written aspects, but also on its phonetic aspects. Although they can be written and pronounced the same, they can be related separately by written and phonetic aspects, and that implies that we can categorize homonymy in absolute and partial. Moreover, on a larger scope, homonymy would be defined as a word that is identical in form with another word, either in sound or in spelling, or both, but differs from it in meaning. For example, when we talk about sale as the act of selling something, and sail, which is the act of traveling by water, which are written differently but pronounced exactly in the same way. Those two are homophones. Now we could talk about bark, which is the skin of a tree, and bark, which is the sound of a dog. Those two words are absolute homonyms. Bark written the exact same way than bark, B as in boy, A-R-K. And the first one is the skin of a tree, and the second one is the sound of a dog. We could also talk about pitch, which is to throw something, or pitch, which is to tar. Now, talking about the types of homonyms that we mentioned, they can be divided into complete, full, or absolute, and partial. The first ones are homonyms that have the same exact pronunciation and the same spelling. The identity covers spoken and written forms. Classic examples are the ones that we already mentioned a little bit early, as bark and bark. And for example, a bank, talking about an embankment, and a bank where the money is kept. Now, talking about the partial homonyms, they are those where the identity covers a single medium, as in homophony and homography. Thus, homophones and homographs are considered partial homonyms. Pretty much the difference between homonyms that they call near homonyms, according to them, they are exactly alike in pronunciation, but differ in spelling and meaning. Like morning and morning. Those are homophones, because morning is written M-O-R-N-I-N-G, and morning is M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. There and there, while near homonyms do not sound exactly alike, except and accept. Loose and loose. On accept and accept, the first one talks about an exception, and the second one talks about acceptance. And loose, from something loose as an adjective, and lose as the verb to lose something. Actually, there are some other types of homonyms, such as the word homonyms, homonyms of word forms, lexical homonyms, and grammatical homonyms. Those are a little bit different categories from partial and absolute. Right now, we're actually going to be talking about homographs. Alan Grambley and Petzold, Richards and Schmidt, all those guys coincide and believe that homographs are words that are written in the same way but pronounced differently and have different meanings, as we already talked about. And for example, there are some other ones from homographs and heteronyms. The term heteronym is used for words that are identical in spelling but different in pronunciation and meaning. Some examples of heteronyms are dove, a bird, and dove, the past tense of dive. Wind, the noun from air that moves quickly, and wind, the verb to twist something. Bow, which is to bend, and bow, which is a weapon used for shooting arrows. And there are some, hundreds of other heteronyms. We could classify heteronyms as absolute homonyms. Now, talking about homophones, many linguists agree that homophones are two or more words that sound alike but are written differently and have different meanings. Some examples are, for example, through as the past tense of throw, and through as if you're going through something. Some others are sight, which is the noun for see, and sight, which is a place. Some others like right and right and right and right. Those four are pronounced exactly the same, but meaning exactly opposite. We could actually talk about that. Right as a ceremony, right as the right side, right as the verb to write something, and right, which is pretty much a last name. Those homophones are deemed to be part of homonymy, the other part being homographs. Moving on, talking about our learning theory, which is the cognitivism. Upon the problematics of the semantic phenomenon that has been identified in the selected workbook and the phenomenon has been described, we will move on to explaining our learning theory, as well as the methodology in which the developing activities will be based. And we actually chose cognitivism, as mentioned before. According to Leiva, this author as a scientific discipline opposite from behaviorism, which focuses on cognitive process and has received the influence of the technological and communicative advance. We could talk about that this is a little bit progressive. Cognitive theories emphasize on the knowledge acquisition and intertwined structures. They are dedicated to the conceptualization of the learning process of the student, and they take care of how the information is being received, organized, stored, and located. Learning binds not as much with what the students do, but what they know and how they learn it. So we could summarize all that on talking about the cognitivism as a theory that focuses mainly on the process and not exactly in the product. Knowledge acquisition is described as a mental activity that implicates an internal codification as well as a structuration process from the student. The student is seen as a very active participant within the learning process. Now, moving on over to the teaching method, which is the presentation, practice, and production, the PPP. According to Lona, Cornejo, and Hernandez, presentation, practice, and production is a modern teaching technique used by professional schools around the globe. In a lesson inspired on this sequence, the role is presented and then is reused in a very controlled context through some specific drills, and finally applied on free productions. So it's aimed for both young and adult people on English language teaching, where presentation is the beginning or the introduction to the language learning, And well, in this section, the teacher must link the presented knowledge with an antecedent knowledge in order to reach a correct subject comprehension. Pretty much the point right here is to link the previous knowledge that the student have and get it together or to the new topic. The practice is referred to the process that enables the progress from the earliest stage and until the last one. Over this section, the teacher watches that students perform activities in which the mistake degree will tend to disappear because the instructor supervises and observes the correct developing of the proposed exercise. And lastly, production is the culmination of the learning process where students uses language freely. Both, important to mention this, vocabulary and grammar structures, both are used and stops from only learning it. They make it theirs. So it is the teacher builds a natural and logic environment from a new knowledge, and his exhaustive participation is crucial. So although the production means to the appropriation of the students, it's really important for the teacher to keep a close eye and participate real active on the process. And based on what we previously inferred, it is established that a class development possesses 3 stages, which are classified on presentation, practice, and production. Okay, so moving on to our number 4 point, our pedagogical proposal, we should first talk about our hypothesis, which will be the 3rd year high school students of Colegio Angel Matute will be able to understand homonymous words, their differences, and their pronunciation in context through the proposed didactic activities. That's pretty much our hypothesis. So we are implying that these activities will be real helpful in the acquisition and the understanding, more importantly, of the semantic phenomenon. Talking about the book review that we made, as we mentioned, our book is complete first for schools. The proposal and the design of these activities, well, we made first an analysis of the book's content. It was carried out to identify shortcomings in relation to the semantic theme chosen to guide the proposed activities. On one hand, the book doesn't really include any exercise related to homonymy, even though its focus is directed towards the enrichment of vocabulary for the acquisition of the first certificate of English for level B2 according to the Common European Framework Reference. Certainly, the book has sections where the learners or, well, certification candidates can find words that are commonly confused at a pragmatic level. But despite this, vocabulary practice is not sufficient for a unit. Taking into account that the book does not have any activity focused on pronunciation nor on the chosen semantic topic, that's important to mention because we couldn't really find any activity that could help with the pronunciation of certain vocabulary, and also not to the semantic topic. We could include over pronunciation maybe the listening practice, but it will be pretty much that. Once this analysis was done, we actually intended to solve the problem according to the book's deficiencies from a semantic perspective by making a proposal of pedagogical activities to work in homonymy in each lesson in an effective and useful way for the candidates and learners. Now, describing our activities, we will actually present the 3 activities on the appendix. Well, our appendix on our written file. You should see right here. They will be based on cognitivism and presentation practice and production methodology, and are going to be focused on developing of the acquisition of homonymy vocabulary with help from English language abilities, listening, writing, and speaking. As it was explained before, class will be divided on 3 stages. First will be a presentation exercise, in which we will have a listening, along with its transcription that will intend to make students identify homonyms within the listening and fill out the gaps from the transcription. That, it has pretty much the objective of, we'll see how much the students can identify homophones over the listening and take them writing process over the transcription. The number 2 is the practice stage, which will be a memory card game where homonyms are going to be included with a picture that responds to the action or the noun that they represent. Students will actually have to match both words with picture cards, and we will try to make substantially and systematically the acquisition of the vocabulary presented. We're presenting pretty much these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 homonyms with their respective terms, or more or less. Maybe it's a little bit higher, that number. But as I said, the purpose was directly to systematically help with the acquisition of the vocabulary and understand that their sounds are similar, but their meanings are different. On our stage number 3, we have our production stage, which is a writing and speaking activity that will be fully coordinated and performed by the students. The activity will be a role play where they will have to use homonymy vocabulary that was presented and practiced before. The whole activity will be supervised and assisted by the instructor, the teacher itself. The purpose of this activity is pretty much, as we said, is that they produce a role play, a situational context of an everyday conversation, where they include some of the vocabulary that they saw previously on the first 2 stages. Okay, so finally, our number 5 point is our conclusions. This research about homonymy, the teaching method, and the learning theory allowed us to understand the purpose and approach of the didactic activities as a complement to the chosen workbook. In the same way, the proposal was pretty useful to present students with an innovative way of learning vocabulary from a semantic perspective, as well as students managed to identify these homonymic words in contexts that can become a problem when testing their listening comprehension during the certification exam or in a casual conversation. On the other hand, these activities can also be used by the teacher outside the classroom for more advanced levels as a complement to their class or curriculum, independently of the textbook, to provide more knowledge about the semantic phenomenon to learners. My name is Emilio Carrillo, and in behalf of every one of my partners, I want to thank you for reaching till the end of this video. Thank you very much to our teachers, Annabelle and Aurea, because they were, sorry, that was pronounced in a real strange way. If we have any bloopers, we'll include that one. I'm sorry, though. What I wanted to say is that we really thank you for the opportunity to bring on this research, despite of the coordination problems and lateness that we had along the whole process of the project. It was actually pretty interesting because we digged as deep as we could on the semantic phenomenon. At least in my experience, that was pretty interesting. And the designing of the activities helped us a lot. The feedback that teacher Aurea gave us for the activities was pretty useful for me at work to design my own activities, to work with some other vocabulary topics, and to give more structure to my classes as well. As I said, in behalf of every one of my partners, I want to thank you. And I hope you have a nice end of semester. Thank you very much and have a nice one. Goodbye.